So, when I was playing, what exactly happened? Some of you might have just heard a series of pleasant notes and melodies, or, as is probably the case, you immediately thought of the movie Lord of the Rings. Maybe a setting like the Fields of Rohan, or a character like Aragorn, or maybe you just remembered a time you stayed up late with your friends watching all 3 extended editions, or just felt generally pleasant. My point here is that you probably felt something. But how did this something happen? That's what I want to talk about today, how a series of chords and melodies can weave a story as powerful as young Frodo Baggins leaving the Shire to destroy the Ring of Power. Now, music at its roots is just notes, which we can combine to make chords and melodies. If we throw all this together with a little bit of rhythm, we can make all sorts of musical phrases. Now, language operates in a very similar way. With any language, we first start with an alphabet, in our case, one with 26 letters, which we can then use to make words and, in turn, sentences. So let's look at the word dog for a second. The word dog is composed of the 3 letters D, O, and G. But when I say dog, none of you are thinking of these letters. You probably just picture a dog. How does this apply to music? Well, let's look at a chord. This is an F major triad composed of the notes F, A, and C. But none of you know that when I play that. You just hear a pleasant sound. As opposed to when I play this chord, which I'm sure most of us would agree sounds a little bit more sinister or sadder, even if you don't know the 3 notes that I played. Now, there are major and minor chords in a lot of music we hear every day. That's why pop music is literally called popular music. For example, when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Forever young, I want to be forever young. Can you feel the love tonight? And so on and so forth. Like our favorite fairy tales, the best pop songs are woven with familiar chords and words to convey concepts that we all can understand and relate to equally. So how does this apply to the next part? If we then look at a word that we don't understand, such as wamap, if we place the word wamap in context, it suddenly starts to make sense. For example, Aragorn struck the orc with his trusty wamap. We immediately start to get a sense of what type of an object a wamap is. The way this applies to music is if I take a chord that we're all unfamiliar with, let's take this chord for example. When I play it, we're pretty unsure about what it means because it's played out of context. It could be a number of things or nothing. But what happens if I place it in context? Suddenly, it starts to make a lot of sense. But that's not the whole story. The word dog, while easy to understand, gets pretty boring pretty quickly. Not many of us still read childhood fairy tales for literary stimulation, so we use more complex chords and styles like jazz to change things up. Etc., etc. Whereas most words, however, refer to specific things, it's really hard to say what a specific chord means. We can only say that chords like this sound pleasant, while chords like this sound maybe a little darker. And still, there seem to be other chords that seem to have a natural tension, a want to be resolved. So we really find that music as a language operates in terms of emotions. When we hear music, we are hearing pushes and pulls, tension and release. But there's still more to it than that. I'm sure that some of you still occasionally listen to a song that reminds you of a particularly awesome summer, or a song that you listened to 900 times with your high school sweetheart. We listen to these songs over and over again for the same reason that we revisit fairy tales, to remind us of different times of our lives. So really, these songs and these stories do mean a lot for us. We can't hear them or read them without directly relating them to our own personal experiences. And we sort of map our own personal experiences onto the pushes and pulls that we hear in music and start to understand music to a better extent. So, with this language of music that we've grown to understand over the years, songwriters can tell familiar stories by speaking in words that we all understand. make things interesting by leading an audience on with tension, only to deny a proper resolution. We can introduce our own new words and define them as we wish. And ultimately, we can push and pull an audience with musical words until suddenly we have a story. Thank you.